South Korea's Nuria Launch Management Committee is announcing the new timetable for the Nuri space rocket launch. This comes as the launch was put on hold over a technical error spotted yesterday. The Bank of Korea keeps the benchmark rate at 3.5%. While consumer prices are being tamed, the central bank still has fears over an economic slowdown due to poor exports. Wrapping up on-site inspections at the Fukushima nuclear plant, a South Korean team of experts is sitting down with related Japanese officials in Tokyo for in-depth discussions on the matter. We begin this afternoon with the country's Nuri space rocket launch. The Space Center down in Goheung will press ahead with the Nuria launch this evening. We head over to our 신새벽 at the Naro Space Center. Hi, 새벽.
Hi, Dami.
So, 새벽, give us the latest. What do we know so far?
Yes, just in. The third launch of Nuri has been set for Thursday at 6:24 p.m. Korea time with a window of 30 minutes before or after the planned lift-off time, depending on weather conditions. And the announcement was made just 10 minutes ago during a briefing. The decision was made during a comprehensive meeting of the Launch Management Committee at 11 a.m. Korea time. There was an overnight technical inspection to fix the communication glitch that caused the last-minute decision to stop the launch because it was a software problem rather than an issue with the rocket itself. Nuri remained in position on the launch pad. Some may be wondering if it's usual to see delays like this in the aerospace field, and the answer is yes. First of all, rocket science itself requires very delicate techniques as it consists of hundreds of thousands of components. For example, Nuri itself is made up of 370,000 parts, and that's around 20 times more than the number in a regular car. Also, unexpected weather issues are outside of the scientists' control. In fact, there are many examples of rocket launches being delayed. The second Nuri launch was delayed twice in 2022. NASA's Artemis 1 moon rocket was also postponed 4 times last year as well. Well, that's all I have for now, but I will be back with more updates for the next newscast. Now back to you, Dami.
Thank you, 새벽. That was our 신새벽 at the Naro Space Center. Now, moving on, South Korea's producer prices ended a run of 3 straight months of growth in April due to a decrease in the prices of agricultural products and utilities. According to preliminary data from the Bank of Korea, the country's producer price index fell 0.1% from the previous month. The latest data follows a 0.4% gain in January, a 0.2% gain in February, and a 0.1% rise in March. On year, however, the index rose 1.6%. The producer price index is a key barometer of consumer inflation, which influences the prices of related goods in the months ahead. South Korea's central bank said Thursday that the key interest rate will remain at 3.5%, with recent relatively eased inflation and some worsening economic data behind the decision. Our finance correspondent Lee Dae-hyun reports.
The Bank of Korea has once again frozen its key interest rate. The central bank announced the decision on Thursday after a monetary policy committee meeting. The base interest rate stays at 3.5%.
Inflation is slowing down, but it's expected to stay above the target level for a while, so we have decided to keep our tightened monetary policy. The Board of Governors voted unanimously to freeze the rate.
Now, this is the third time in a row that the BOK has decided to keep the rate unchanged. The central bank cut the base rate in 2020 amid concerns over the economic recession due to COVID-19, but started to raise the rates in August 2021. Analysts say with the consumer price index coming down to the 3% range, May's decision reflects the central bank's intention to avoid throwing cold water onto easing inflation. Economic uncertainty was also one of the factors for the rate freeze. Amid sluggish exports, South Korea's real GDP for the first quarter of this year expanded slightly, just 0.3% from the previous quarter, barely avoiding negative growth. The country's current account balance in March, too, narrowly avoided a deficit for 3 consecutive months, thanks to dividend inflows from overseas subsidiaries of South Korean companies. However, South Korea's trade balance remained in the red last month for the 14th month in a row. Crisis in the financial market also seems to have affected the decision, as rate hikes may intensify bank and card company anxiety, which is raised due to the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank. After the monetary policy meeting, the Bank of Korea also cut this year's economic growth rate from 1.6% to 1.4%, considering the recent worsening economic index and the weak impact of China's reopening. The consumer price index is expected to be at 3.5%. Following the rate freeze, the market widely expects rate hikes to end at this point, at least for now. With the central bank's decision to hold the rate, the interest rate difference between South Korea and the U.S. now stands at 1.75 percentage points. Lee Hyun, Arirang News.
U.S. Federal Reserve officials were split on the level of policy tightening necessary at their last policymaking meeting. FOMC minutes published Wednesday for its May meeting show officials were divided on the need for more rate hikes after they unanimously voted to raise interest rates by a quarter point. According to the minutes, several participants noted that further policy tightening may not be necessary based on the current economic outlook. Others, however, said that additional rate hikes may be needed to bring inflation down to the Fed's target of 2%. The document said that officials are likely to monitor incoming data, such as April's personal consumption exponential price index and May's job growth ahead of their meeting in June. Even as a possible default looms, there is still no breakthrough in talks between the White House and the top Republican negotiators. Our Peunji has the details.
With only 8 days before the U.S. government could face an unprecedented default, negotiators for Democratic President Joe Biden and top congressional Republican Kevin McCarthy reconvened for another round of discussions at the White House on Wednesday, but failed to secure a deal on the debt ceiling. McCarthy said they moved in a positive direction, but said they're still far apart.
You have to spend less than you spent last year. That's not that difficult to do. They have increased spending with the Democrats in the majority on discretionary spending by more than 33%. No household's been able to afford to do that. We can find waste, we can eliminate that.
The U.S. Congress faces a June 1st deadline to either raise or suspend the debt ceiling in order to avoid a catastrophic default. Republicans led by McCarthy have been insisting on spending cuts in exchange for raising the debt limit. They say they'll not accept the deal unless it results in the government spending less money than it did in the last fiscal year, and are pushing for cuts to 2022 levels. But the White House says the Republicans are risking a devastating default as they demand extreme spending cuts that would hurt millions of Americans. Meanwhile, at a Wall Street Journal event on Wednesday local time, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen expressed concerns and said it's highly likely the U.S. would run out of resources to meet all the government's obligations in early June, and possibly as early as June 1st.
So we are seeing some stress already in Treasury markets, and I think that should be a reminder of the importance of reaching a timely agreement.
With the growing possibility of a default, U.S. stocks fell on Wednesday, with the Dow Jones ending the day down by around 250 points. Peunji, Arirang News.
The South Korean delegation to the Fukushima nuclear power plant wrapped up their inspection there to assess whether the wastewater is safe enough to be released into the Pacific Ocean. They are now in Tokyo to have in-depth talks with associated Japanese officials. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
A team of South Korean nuclear experts sent to Japan to inspect the Fukushima contaminated water release on Wednesday visited the chemical lab that analyzes nuclides, the plant's tritium dilution system, and the facility responsible for actually releasing the treated water. After their observation, addressing the media, the chairman of the inspection team, Yoo Go-ki, said they had focused on whether the shut-off valve was in place, adding, that the valves are there to shut off the system if there is a problem with the contaminated water after going through the ALPS process, but before being diluted. The focus of the inspection was on where the emergency valve is and whether it's fully functional. But still, the chairman said additional inspections have to be done for them to come to a conclusion.
It's still a bit too early for a conclusion. We did check the location of the valve with our own eyes, but we still have to check how the valve works and its capacity.
He also said other items included the tools to figure out the nuclear concentration level for each radioactive material, as well as the dilution system's capacities. Wednesday's inspection lasted 30 minutes less than Tuesday's, and according to the chairman, everything on the day's agenda went according to plan. Separately, in a parliamentary session on Wednesday, Seoul's Foreign Minister Park Jin dismissed concerns that South Korea is only giving Japan reasons for the discharge of contaminated water by sending its own team of experts to the power plant.
The inspection team is not Japan's sidekick. Of course, the IAEA is conducting inspections, but our team of experts is also there to closely examine the facilities for themselves and let the public know what they found.
Park also reaffirmed that the government will not lift its ban on seafood imports from Fukushima unless public concerns are eased. On Thursday, the last day of their mission, the 21-member inspection team will hold an in-depth discussion with relevant Japanese officials based on the information gathered from the on-site inspections before returning back to Seoul the following day. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea's Trade Minister An Deok-keun will attend the annual meeting of the trade ministers from the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation in Detroit this week. This year's meeting, chaired by the U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai, will take place from Thursday to Friday local time. There, An will be presenting South Korea's policies aimed at contributing to the multilateral trading system and ways of global cooperation needed to better respond to the fast-changing trade environment. On the sidelines of the meeting, An is scheduled to meet with his counterparts from major APEC members to discuss a wide range of issues, including industry, trade, and energy. South Korea's largest eco-friendly tech and energy event kicked off in Busan on Thursday, under the theme Rising Above the Climate Crisis Towards Sustainable Prosperity. The World Climate Industry Expo is due to run until Saturday, with over 500 companies showcasing the latest green technology, including South Korean firms such as Samsung Electronics, LG Electronics, and Hyundai Motor. Business roundtables and summits between mayors of cities around the world to discuss carbon-neutral policies and cooperations are also on the schedule. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo's opening speech expressed his hopes that the event will provide a venue for international discussions about innovation in the climate industry. And a higher court in Montenegro has scrapped Terraform Labs founder Do Kwon's bail following an appeal. Now, the court says both Kwon and his former finance officer would flee if released on bail. Lee Seung-jae has more.
Earlier this month, Terraform Labs founder Do Kwon and his former finance officer Han Chang-jun were granted bail of 400,000 euros, or just over $430,000 each. However, the prosecution appealed the bail, saying that neither would have any interest in staying in Montenegro once released from detention. And a higher court on Wednesday agreed with the prosecution that the payment of some $860,000 for bail for both men could not be taken as a solid guarantee. Both Kwon and Han were detained in March as they tried to board a flight to Dubai from Montenegro. They were charged with forging official documents as they were found with doctored Costa Rican passports and a separate set of Belgian passports. Meanwhile, with both South Korea and the United States seeking the extradition of Do Kwon and his former finance officer, Montenegrin authorities insist that the two must go through a trial in Montenegro before there is any chance of their extradition. Not to mention, the two would also need to finish any prison sentence handed down to them in Montenegro before they would be extradited to either South Korea or the U.S. And watchers believe that they could be facing the maximum penalty of 5 years in prison. Still, For many investors who lost money on the collapse of the Terra Luna cryptocurrency ecosystem, their fears that Kwon and Han would go on the run again have been quelled with the court's decision to scrap their bail. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. Private satellite launching company Virgin Orbit has shut down. According to a statement by the California-based company on Tuesday, its assets are being sold and its doors are shutting. Founded in 2017 by British billionaire Richard Branson, the company aimed to provide space launches for the growing small satellites market. Unlike its competitors, Virgin Orbit used a horizontal launch method, firing its Launcher 1 rocket from the wing of a converted Boeing 747. The shutdown comes after a major mission failure in January in Cornwall, where its first ever satellite launch failed to reach orbit. The company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the US in April and recovered $36 million after auctioning off its assets. The amount is roughly 1% of its highest valuation in late 2021. A paralyzed Dutchman is able to walk again thanks to implants in both his brain and spine. Still in its experimental stage, the treatment was led by a team of Swiss researchers, with their findings published in the journal Nature on Wednesday. With the help of a walking aid, 40-year-old Gert Jan Oskam can climb stairs and walk distances of up to 100 meters. 12 years ago, Oskam was told he would never walk again after breaking his neck in a cycling accident. The implants work by acting as a bridge between the brain and the muscles, giving him more control over his movements. The brain implant sends instructions to the spine in order to move the correct leg and foot muscles. Netflix has expanded its crackdown on account sharing to over 100 countries, including the United States and Germany. The streaming giant alerted users on Tuesday that their accounts can no longer be shared for free outside their households. Those wanting to add an outside member will need to pay an extra fee. For US users, it's $8 per month. But people in the same house will still be able to share an account and use it on other devices while traveling. Netflix estimates that about 100 million households have shared their passwords with people outside their homes. The move comes as Netflix looks for more ways to generate revenue amid growing competition. It introduced an ad-supported subscription in October last year. And finally, rock and roll singing legend Tina Turner has died at the age of 83. According to her spokesperson, Turner died at her home in Switzerland on Wednesday, following years of health complications. Known as the Queen of Rock and Roll, Turner won 8 Grammy Awards and was twice inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Turner dominated the music scene with R&B hits in the 1960s and early 70s, alongside her former husband, Ike Turner. She subsequently opened up about the physical abuse she endured during the relationship and was left close to financial ruin. In 1984, she staged a successful solo comeback with a multi-platinum album, Private Dancer, and the #1 hit, What's Love Got to Do With It? Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. The month of May is known to have the best weather conditions of the year in Korea, with many holidays to celebrate. It is also a month of change, making the transition from spring into summer. And we've surely had more warmer than normal days with strong sunshine lately, which is also today's weather pattern. We'll see strong sunshine with high UV rays this afternoon, so please take extra care in the sun. Morning temperatures were 2 to 5 degrees higher than yesterday, and afternoon highs are also a tad higher this afternoon, topping out at 27 degrees Celsius in most of Korea. And the air quality will be normal to good nationwide all day today. Sunny today, but tomorrow looks to be a wet one with passing rain in the forecast for most inland areas with 5 to 20 millimeters expected, so please have an umbrella handy. Then there will be nationwide rain during the 3-day holiday weekend with a slight drop in temperatures, so please plan accordingly for your weekend. That's Korea for you. Here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That is all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at 2 p.m. Korea time with more details on the Nuri rocket launch. Thanks for watching.